All right, let's bring in Brian Fonseca now. He's the director of the Institute for Public Policy at Florida International University. Brian, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Polo.
Of course, it's our pleasure. You recently wrote that negotiating with Cuba, it would make for an uncomfortable reality, as you put it, for the U.S. I'm curious if you could expand on that.
Yeah, I mean, similar in the case of Venezuela, where the United States conducted that incredible operation to remove Nicolas Maduro, but left much of the Venezuelan regime in power and is now negotiating directly through the Venezuelan regime, which is not necessarily the kind of change that Venezuelans in South Florida are looking for, Venezuelans in the broader diaspora. I'm afraid that's probably going to be very similar in the case of Cuba, in which the United States is probably going to have to engage with and through members of the Cuban regime if they're looking for a long-term sort of sustainable change. And that may be uncomfortable for a lot of Cubans in South Florida. They're looking for a complete break from the Cuban regime. That's unlikely to happen because much of the power is very much consolidated among the sort of elite and institutions, much like the military institution in Cuba.
Yeah, the report that I'm sure you just heard right now, and Patrick's report, where he says that the lights are off more often than they're on. I think that is just a remarkable just reporting there. Just give us a sense of the situation there on the ground right now for Cuba, essentially on the brink of collapse. And what's a worst case scenario should a deal not be reached between the U.S. and Cuba?
Yeah, I mean, certainly Cuba's in a dire situation right now. After Venezuela, the United States stopped the ability of Venezuela to ship oil to Cuba. The United States intervened when Mexico attempted to ship oil. And so essentially, the United States was using economic coercion, essentially getting the lights to turn off in an effort to sort of economically squeeze Cuba, to accepting some negotiated terms with the United States to look towards a trajectory that would ultimately move the country towards democracy, away from sort of the institutionalized regime that's been in power for decades. And I think that's where the United States is expecting the regime to sort of break down and engage with the United States as part of an off-ramp in order to address some of the struggling that's certainly going on across the country. I think worst case scenario is that there's a collapse, and I think the United States is being very careful not to necessarily see a collapse where you have massive migration, sort of exodus, leaving the island, fleeing to places like the United States, places like Miami, where I live. And I think that's probably the worst case scenario, is that you have this implosion, and that implosion sort of leads to a managed or at least a very dire humanitarian crisis, in which now the Straits of Florida, for example, are flooded with people leaving the island. There's massive instability across the island that could turn violent. I think that's a worst case scenario for the United States. So I suspect the United States is going to be looking for a negotiated settlement prior to that, and hoping that sort of the Cuban regime is going to call, or at least bluff first, and engage the United States constructively in some type of transition event.
Yeah, we've seen those migration rushes before. And I'm curious in terms of what Cubans living in the United States would want to see come out of any potential negotiations. I mean, what do you think, how do you think they feel about these potential conversations that would happen between the White House and the Cuban government? What do they want?
I mean, I think so many Cubans just want to see Cuba free from sort of the grips of communism. I mean, the Castros are pretty much behind us. Raul Castro is still living, of course, and does have some degree of influence at the very strategic level. But I think that the Cubans, certainly in my community, want to see Cuba free. They want to see democracy restored in Cuba. They want to see some degree of accountability to those that have run this sort of Cuban state into the ground and pillaged the state's resources and corruption and sort of engaging in human rights violations. So that's that's probably going to be the more challenging part, is sort of this issue of transitional justice as we move away from the regime towards some seeming democratic process, which again may be a ways away. I think right now the most stable path forward is some negotiated pathway in which we move back towards some elections, some ability for democratic institutions to be established. Remember, it's decades since there's been any seeming democracy, 80 years almost, in which you've been absent democratic institutions. All of that has to be completely built from the ground up. And so I think any transition is going to take some time. And I think the Cubans in Miami are going to have to sort of reconcile with, there is no major democratic opposition to inherit the government. And so again, that sort of sense of taking time is certainly going to be unnerving and certainly uncomfortable for a lot of those in Miami that are going to watch the Trump administration engage with the regime as part of the process.
Yeah, without a doubt, Cuban Americans watching this extremely closely. It is very personal to them, as you highlight. Brian Fonseca, thank you so much for your perspective, as always.
Thanks, Paulo.